I wanted to take this opportunity on, I guess this is the second signing day, or however you guys would like to designate it, but we did have one player in the state of Louisiana sign. He happens to be the top player in the state of Louisiana, so we wanted to give him the due respect. Dominic McKinley out of Acadiana High School signed with us this morning, and we're excited about him, a consensus five-star defensive lineman, ranked 13th nationally. I think that's 8 out of the top 12, 12 of the top 15 players in the state of Louisiana that we're able to sign in this class, and certainly adding Dominic to this class really tops it off for us. So really excited about his national letter of intent this morning, and also the transfer portal additions that I didn't talk about back in December. And look, I mean, it's very strategic for me in terms of looking at the portal. You know, we looked at it from a perspective of fit and need, but fit first. And as I've said to you before, I think it's, you know, for us, we're going to develop and build this program with high school players, and then be very strategic with the portal. It's no coincidence that 4 out of the 6 players are from the state of Louisiana, and they have ties to the state of Louisiana, 2 from Baton Rouge out of U High, 2 from New Orleans, and John Ehret and Warren Easton High School. And then 2 that are established players from the SEC. One of the things that we needed to do from an offensive perspective is we needed to add some offense back into an offense that lost some prolific weapons, and we do that with you know, 3 players in particular: A.J. Swan, C.J. Daniels, and Xavion Thomas. If you take those 3 together, combined, they bring in 4,200 yards of offense total. And so, you know, you look at, for example, A.J. Swan with 22 touchdown passes in 23. Jaden Daniels had 19 in his first year. So, you know, you're bringing in somebody that you feel really good about his ability to generate offense at the quarterback position. C.J. Daniels, 1,000 yards in receiving. And so, again, you know, replacing some offense was very, very important strategically, as well as we continue to develop and bring along young players in our program, we needed to do that. And Xavion Thomas, you know, 500 yards and 40 touches. Now you've got almost 100 touches with 2 wide receivers that have, you know, experience coming back into your offense. So that was really important to us. Defensively, we were looking for somebody that was experienced and that played off the hash, and we got that in Jordan Gilbert, you know, safety at Texas A&M, played a lot of football, you know, 25 games of football, and again, right here from U High. Jair Brown, who is an experienced player and a starter at Ohio State. And then Austin Osbury, who, you know, obviously from right here, who's an outstanding athlete. So, again, needs, we still have some needs. You know, the defensive tackle position is one that we're still vetting, that we have some needs that we'll continue to look at moving forward, going into the spring. But again, excited about Dominic McKinley and his addition today, and then moving forward, we could have, you know, we've got a 7-day window here in the signing period. You know, we could have some other movement here. So again, pretty excited about the closing of this this signing day, and then certainly the additions that we made in the portal. So with that, we'll open it up to questions.
Coach, you mentioned building through the high schools, and I believe on different programs, I've heard you talk about the reasoning behind that. Could you kind of elaborate on just the longevity that maybe those that you've experienced with those types of players versus the short-term goals of transfer portal players?
Well, I mean, we had a huge need last year. You know, there were issues relative to numbers within our program where we had to go into the transfer portal just to field a roster, you know, from a defensive perspective. And, you know, that's not sustainable. And what's sustainable is player development, retention, and you do that through building relationships with your players that are here because they want to be at LSU. Because, again, one of the other important elements is they're from the state of Louisiana. There's you know, that allegiance to the flagship school and the university. So there's many levels and layers to that. But for me, I think the business plan has been all along to pull our base here in the state of Louisiana, develop the high school player, and then by doing so, you develop a relationship and a trust and an allegiance to the young man that's in your program. That doesn't mean you don't use the transfer portal. I think you've got to be strategic in it, and you've got to be in it when you need it. And I illustrated, you know, how we had to use it last year, and we used it again this year, and we'll continue to use it. But I think it's going to be development of our players first and foremost through the high school ranks.
What went in ultimately, you think, into being able to flip Dominic McKinley from Texas A&M there at the during this period, and what are you guys getting in him? What would be your evaluation at this point?
Well, look, you know, when we're talking about the flip, you know, certainly the coaching change there started it, right? So it gave us an opportunity to continue to talk about why we thought that this was the best fit for him. And during that time, when there's a transition, you know, you're able to, you know, build a stronger relationship and trust. And so, you know, a lot of these are built upon that. And we did not have, you know, a consistent situation either at the defensive line position. So, you know, we were fighting against it on both ends. So, you know, we had to solidify our situation and build some continuity there. But the window was opened with the transition at A&M, and then we just became consistent with our ability to, you know, get with him and his family and show them why this was the best choice.
Coach, only 3 guys in this class are not from border states, whether it's Mississippi, Texas, Louisiana. What was the emphasis there as you think long-term and retention and things like that?
Yeah, those are the states that we have targeted relative to our recruiting philosophy. And so, you know, we really focused going into this year of recruiting last year, obviously, that we wanted to be in these particular states to do our base recruiting. Now, as you know, we'll go anywhere for a quarterback. And quite frankly, we'll go anywhere for a difference maker. But our base recruiting is going to be in the border states, Georgia, Florida, and that's kind of where we're most comfortable and have the best, I think, success rate relative to LSU and where historically recruiting has been best served. So I think that that's just really following kind of the historical patterns and then really getting back into those each year.
You got some young defensive linemen, obviously, in this class in Washington. Didn't do anything in the portal with defensive tackles. Do you like what you have? Do you think you're going to have to do more in May? And, of course, you got a new defensive line coach. How concerned are you about that position and competing in the SEC for this upcoming football season?
Well, I love our young players. I mean, Gabe Relaford, obviously, we talked about McKinley, certainly Demarius. I mean, we've got young, talented players. Ahmad Bro, we're going to be in a really good situation. We've got edge players, and so that to me is an area that we're going to have to get more depth in the inside, the interior, in the shade, and the three technique. And we're going to continue to look at where we can continue to grow there. We're still recruiting, and we'll continue to do that. We have the spring portal that we'll address as well. So there are any transfer opportunities within the SEC, but there are opportunities in the spring outside the SEC. So we're vigilant. We're on it. We know where we need to continue to build depth, and we like the guys we have on campus. So we know where we need to continue to grow.
Hey, Coach, I know you emphasized locking down the state of Louisiana when you first came here, and I know you just mentioned it just recently that I believe 9 of the top 10 players in Louisiana that y'all signed. So how important was it for this class specifically to really lay down that message to lock down the state of Louisiana?
Well, I mean, locking down is a great word to use, but I think what has to happen is you got to go out, and each coach has to have a geographical area in the state of Louisiana, and then a pathway to get to the border states. So everybody has to be involved in the state of Louisiana, and you can't take any geographical area for granted. You've got to be all over the state. So I think it's just a commitment to getting out there and working hard. And I think our staff did a really good job of getting out there and working hard and doing the due diligence necessary to, represent a really strong brand. So I don't think it's rocket science. I think it's really about working hard and building those relationships and not taking anything for granted. Just because we're LSU, they're going to come. You need to recruit. And I think our guys did a really good job of recruiting, and we need to continue to do that.
Give you a chance to make your pitch here. You talked about the development, obviously the development we saw on the offensive side of the ball, the line, the receivers, the quarterback. How much did that help in this recruiting process, either this year or next year? And then secondly, the new additions to your coaching staff, how warmly have they been received on the trail?
Well, I think we're seeing it, right? I mean, clearly this is another, top 10 recruiting class. The next year's class has gotten off to a great start. So, clearly, the success that we're having and consistency of performance, in particular on the offensive side of the ball, is resonating. And you still have to follow it up with, intentional, consistent recruiting, but both of those are working together. From a defensive standpoint, the momentum is picking up, obviously, because there's great name recognition. There's coaches that are certainly recognizable, and they've been well received because these are coaches that have had success and have been successful in recruiting and have had strong relationships. So, the proof will be down the road, but we're certainly seeing early indications of, higher results as it relates to our defensive staff and the new hires.
When you look ahead to spring, I'm just curious if there's been any talks about maybe cross-training some of these defensive linemen. I know that worked a lot, worked well for you guys last year on the O-line when you were a little bit thin in numbers last spring. I'm just curious if there's any players that you might consider moving inside or just kind of get some extra numbers, I guess, in there.
Yep. Yeah. There's no doubt. I think we've looked at a couple of guys that we're going to probably move. I don't want to announce them right now, but we're certainly going to move a couple of guys over to the defensive side of the ball to create a more competitive situation for us, especially, when we're talking about O-line going against the defensive line. So we want to create that. So I think you'll be prepared to see some movement there. I'd like to get these guys a little bit more time moving around, and we get into some of our OTA work later in the month, and then we'll get a chance to see them move, and then we'll be able to know for sure that they can handle the change in position. But yes, you can expect some movement there.
Coach, you scheduled the spring game for April 13th,
Yes, I did.
and then the portal opens on the 15th?
Yes.
Was that done purposely for you guys to be able to focus on that?
No, no, I mean, the portal, we knew the portal situation. This was a matter of just how the spring break dates are. As you know, the Easter and break is a little bit different this year, so it's really just counting your calendar and trying to get some practices in before the break so you can extend the calendar longer because you don't have to count spring break. And it just fell that way with the portal opening up on the 15th.
When you talk about locking down the state of Louisiana, was it intentional then when hiring this staff to bring in so many coaches, all coaches who had previous ties to the state and now have a staff that has all been here previously, or obviously maybe as a result of already being here now, had so many Louisiana ties on this staff? Was that an intentional thing?
I mean, it's been stated that, my goals here are to, first and foremost, recruit the state of Louisiana. So you can imagine that that's going to be part of, the thought process. I can't tell you it's the most important thing because we got to stop people. We got to keep the points down. We've got to be able to coach and teach and, motivate. But certainly that has to be part of the process as well. Because that's a stated goal of how we recruit. So where does it fall on the list of importance? I would probably echo what you said. I think it's intentional. But is it the first thing on the list? Probably not, but it's definitely something that you don't necessarily. I would say when we all see those job descriptions, is it mandatory? No, but strongly, I think worded that you should have experience recruiting in the state of Louisiana.
With respect to Jordan Gilbert transfer, I know you've brought in plenty of college experience before, but his level experience, how big of a key piece was that for this class?
Yeah, I mean, I have a lot of confidence in our younger players that are getting more experience. I really do. I mean, and I think the freshmen that we have coming in are going to compete early in their careers, but there's nothing like somebody that's been out there and played in the SEC and knows what it looks like. He was injured last year and never really got off and got into a good place last year, had this shoulder surgery, but the year before he played really well. So we know what we're getting. We're getting a smart player, a committed player, somebody that has experience, and it's hard not to want to gain some experience back there, when you have some inexperience. But I will say that the caveat here is the young players that we have are going to be dynamic.
Brian, especially with the expansion of the college football playoff, does the recruiting calendar need to change? We have the open date, the early date now, and is that something that you personally would want to lobby for?
Yeah, I think we're past lobbying. There's no more lobbying. I think what has to happen, and I think we saw this, the SEC and the Big Ten commissioners got together and said, look, we're going to try to have some form of consensus when it comes to legislation, some form of consensus when it comes to moving agendas. And that will fall now heavily on, our next meeting when we get together on the 15th relative to this particular item which you brought up, and that's the calendar. What can happen is we get into a room and we have 8 opinions. We have to have one voice, and we have to move forward with one decision and one voice on how we begin to get hold of a calendar that is, well, quite frankly, not manageable. So what is that going to look like? I mean, I could give you 10 different scenarios, and 10 different people could agree or disagree with them, but something is going to have to change with the calendar. Or this is just, this is a runaway train that's going to end in a bad place.